Facebook group.
Yeah, I'm loving these updates this morning. Thank you. Thank you.
That is a pleasure. That is a pleasure. It is. I'm very excited about what's starting to unfold in the 3Cs community. It feels really fun to be able to answer people's questions personally. So welcome to those of you that are joining on Facebook. Welcome. I, as usual, can't easily see, but I'm trusting Gia, you'll let me know if there's anything I need to know. If you could just pin my screen, please, so make sure, let me just see where we are. There. So today, what I want to just set us up for before Andrea Robertson is going to join us at 1 o'clock. But with these calls, I always just really think there is enormous value in just reconnecting you to the space, why we're here, what we're wanting to achieve in the reconnection revolution. And this first series is all about the back to basics conversations for connecting you, reconnecting you to the most authentic and highest expression of the woman you are here to be. And I want to dive us back into what authenticity is. What does it actually mean? You know, there's so much power in words. And when we use words and they get thrown around and we have that essence, that sense of what they are, but we don't have the clarity on what it is we're trying to achieve, we just keep kind of swirling in inspiration land, and it never really grounds and serves us to fulfill the goal that we're here to fulfill. When I look for definitions to words like this, I always turn to Brené Brown. She has a fabulous book called Atlas of the Heart. She's got so many books and resources. You can just Google different words. But her definition of authenticity is accepting ourselves for who we really are and abandoning the idea of who we think we should be. So, who are we? Who are you? Who are you? The way that I think about the woman that I am today is I am a vessel of wisdom, and that wisdom has been accumulated over countless hours, over 51 years. Since the first day that I arrived on this planet and the people around me either smiled or had some other facial expression. And that's my first way of starting to process my connection with other people. And then I start to hear voices in the outside world, voices that I could probably hear in my mum's tummy, my dad's voice. But then suddenly I could connect and see this face that went with this voice. And from there, we're making all of these connections. Some of them get hardwired into our neurons, different behaviors. Some of them just get tucked away and are unconscious. Some of them remain in our conscious awareness. We learn each step of the way how to connect with people, our place in the world, the things that we're good at, the things that we're naturally gifted at. And some of them, those things that you have that you're actually incredibly gifted at, we can easily dismiss them as something that everyone can do. It doesn't have value. What is the value in being somebody who makes other people laugh if you're not a comedian? What is the value in being somebody that grounds people, that makes people feel safe and relaxed when you're around them? What's the value in being able to cook a meal and put it on the table? What's the value in being able to come out the other side of a heartbreaking divorce? What's the value in the lessons that you learned as you were trying to work your way through the grief of a death of somebody you love? What is the value in having a grandchild that you see every now and then? What is the value in all these things? And we touched on this a bit yesterday with Erin when we talked about values. But if we think of a value as something that has worth, what are the things that really have worth? Yes, money has great worth. It allows us to be in this energy of exchange. But what has more worth than money is your time. Can never be got back. You can only spend it once. This second has now been spent. And you are choosing to spend this second of your life that you can never get back with me. And I don't take that lightly. I value that. I value that to the point where I have to fight back the tears, in all honesty. For anyone that's been in my world for a while, you know that I have great emotion behind the work that I do and the honor of doing the work that I do and connecting with the women that I get to connect with. The messages that I've been gifted to share. I don't take this lightly. And my hope is that you don't take your time lightly either. Where you choose to invest your time is something you should put enormous value on the decision behind that, who you give your time to. Your energy is also enormously valuable. Part of this conversation, part of why I want to be constantly bringing back the conversation of how we lay this strong foundation for our well-being, our health, our energy, our vitality. It's priceless. It's priceless. The wealthiest person on the planet that gets so sick they no longer have energy can't buy that energy back. Don't dismiss the value of it. Don't dismiss the gratitude, the deep gratitude for this life that we have, the energy, the limbs that move, the arms that we can hold, the people we love closest to us, or the hand that we can shake, or the eyes that connect with another human. This is the richness in our lives. To have eyes that see the things that we can look at with awe and wonder. This is the stuff that fills up your energy cup, that fills your joy. I want to talk more about joy. But when I think about joy, I think of the faces of people like the Dalai Lama. And I spoke yesterday of these Greek women or Greek people in Ikaria, this joy that is effervescent. It's not the Coca-Cola commercials. That's the stuff that's poisoned our picture of what joy is. Joy is the essence of life. It's the life force that keeps you connected with the awe, the majesty, the magnificence of other humans and their life story, of the plants and the leaves and the oxygen and the air, earth, air, wind and fire, earth, water. I think air and wind is the same thing. That is the richness. That is the richness. So when we think about authenticity and we go back to who are you? You are this vessel of wisdom and experience and compassion and courage. There is so much evidence for your kindness, your compassion, your courage, your audacity, your vulnerabilities, your imperfect humanness. That is what ties humanity together. To err is human. if we're not making mistakes, if we're not falling over and getting up again, we're not being human, we're being mindless robots. To err is human. And our fear of making mistakes, our fear of getting it wrong, our fear of not knowing enough, it is sucking the life out of us. It is robbing us of the ability to live, to be the most authentic and highest expression of the woman we are here to be. This is the stuff of life. This is the richness that makes every day worth living. And sometimes part of that living is the hardship. Part of that living is the heartbreak. Part of that living is looking at our children or our loved ones who are perhaps not doing so well and feeling that. But in that, we get to celebrate the fact that we feel, that we have the connection, that we can experience the compassion and empathy. We've been taught to see these things as bad, to run from them. But that's running from life. We don't want to run away from life. We want to experience life. We want to be in, both feet in, living life. To have the honor to be there for the friend that needs an ear, for the person that needs somebody to listen to them. The honor that I feel for every fever that I've nursed my children through. To have a child literally on death's door and to be there to hold his hand as he came back. That's an honor. It's an honor. It's an honor because it's part of his story. It's part of my story. And we get to feel these feelings as we live as the highest expression of who we're here to be. When I see women hiding in shame, which I see every day in my work, it breaks my heart. And this is the invitation to pull us all forward in our humanity. It's okay to say we don't know. It's okay to say I did this and oh my gosh, it makes me tingle with embarrassment. It's okay because when we share this, it is the highest expression of who we are here to be. When I share these words, I give great thought to them. I don't put together a masterclass that is called the back to basics of being the most authentic, highest expression of who you are here to be, because I want everybody to pretend they're living in a Coca-Cola commercial. I don't even know if Coca-Cola do commercials anymore. It's my memory, you know, like as a child, when I think about those things, that's the picture that we've been sold that life is supposed to look like. It's actually not. We know that. We've been doing this journey called life for long enough that we know that. The richness, the connection, the love, the awe, the wonder, the admiration is for the people that are willing to fall over and get back up again, to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I'm so embarrassed. I had that conversation with my beautiful 20-year-old daughter this morning. I won't tell you the story because she'd probably be horrified if I did. But it's something similar to this. And I shared my experience of what she did with her. I can remember being heavily pregnant with my eldest son, Oliver, who's about to turn 24, sitting in my Ford Bronco on the side of the road with this enormous gut. I could hardly reach the steering wheel. I had very big babies. Archibald was like nearly 11 pounds. And I'm not a big woman. So I had huge pregnancy, sitting there, having called the RACV, for those on the other side of and not in Australia, that's like our roadside assist, sitting there for an hour, frustrated because my car wouldn't start. And this dude turns up, the mechanic, and you can picture he was the quintessential bloke, got out of his car and he's like, love, you need to put it in park for it to start. I'd be sitting there for an hour and the car wasn't in park, which was why it wouldn't start. Those moments, oh my gosh, the amount of joy that I've caused other people by telling these stories of my intense embarrassment. I felt so stupid. I share because this is being human. Yes, we get to share the celebrations. The celebrations are awesome. We get to be each other's greatest champions. I'm about to introduce you to Andrea, and we've shared some of these moments. We were in a coaching group together, and we were having little conversations behind the scenes. And there's moments of celebration, and then there's moments of frustration, and there was moments of how on earth did I make that decision? All these moments. And we've become friends through sharing these moments. This is what it is to be human. So this is me calling you forward, not in perfection, not in shininess, but in your humanity with all the bits, because it's all the bits that make you the most extraordinarily unique and precious human, because only you have lived your life. Only you have had the experiences that you've had in the way that you've had them. And it's all part of this life journey that we're on. So the intention with this little warm up before I introduce you to my gorgeous friend, Andrea, is we are here to practice, because it is a daily practice to be the most authentic and highest expression of the woman we are here to be. So, Andrea, my gorgeous friend, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for being with us and for spending this time with us. I am so grateful.
Hello.
So Andrea is an osteopath, a naturopath, a nutritionist, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I love these titles because it just feels like, this kind of tiny slither on top of all the richness of what you are going to bring to this conversation. The reason that I asked Andrea to come and speak with us today is because when we think about this most authentic and highest expression of who we are, we want to be the healthiest we can possibly be in order to do this. And we need to take care of this precious body that we are walking through life with. And having studied naturopathy, having raised 4 children, having battled with my weight since I think I was about 14, my clients will know that I've said I've been on a diet for that long, and I'm now 51. So it's quite a long time. So I'm dying to talk about diet with Andrea because that's one of her strengths. But, it is this, there is so much conflicting information out there. There's so much choice. There's so many different ways we can go with all this. And so being able to find somebody that we trust, to be able to find somebody that, has that resonance of truth for us. So when we hear things, it's important that we choose that for ourselves. I trust Andrea, which is why I've invited Andrea to come in and speak with us today. And she's going to talk to us in a minute about what osteopathy is, so that those who don't know will have a deeper sense of what that is. A few things about nutrition and diet, but we'll just dive in here. Andrea, for those that haven't had the pleasure of meeting you until now, I'd love to start with, how did you come to be doing the work that you do? What was your journey?
Well, it's a long one, Edwina. It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And for everyone who's watching, Edwina is just the best, isn't she? I just love her so much. Right from the minute I met you, I just felt so connected. So it's really lovely to do this little interview with you. So my journey to what led me to studying health. I was one of those kids that I laugh about it very fondly now, but I didn't like it so much at the start that my mum used to feed me. I used to say bird seed and rabbit food. Like my mum was really healthy, and so I'm very grateful now, but we were always, everything was homemade, lots of extra fiber with seeds and nuts and everything, and always, yes. So my brother and I are like, oh, not more bird seed and rabbit food, but I'm so grateful now. And I was a dancer when I was, well, for a long time. I guess I kind of am still a dancer, but I studied classical ballet at a very high level all the way through from 3 until 18. Did you know that, Edwina? Oh, you didn't know this about me. That's been a big part of my life. I really only, I still do ballet class now, but I danced professionally for 12 years. I was a soloist at the Moulin Rouge in Paris. You didn't know that. So ballet was
Rouge last night. Did I see that you went and saw it in Melbourne?
I went and saw the show, yeah. It's a musical last night. It was great. I loved it. Can.
Yeah.
Can. I've done many can-cans in my life.
Oh,
but
I'm madly envious right at the moment.
So it's the dance stuff, right? When I was really young, I used to go and see a local chiropractor just for little niggly things. And I remember when I got to the end of school and I really wanted to be a dancer, professional dancer, and I'm quite tall, which is good why I got into the Moulin Rouge, but wasn't good at that stage because I wanted to be a ballerina.
Yep.
And ballerinas are not tall like me. And so in fact, I've got one of my really dear friends is a principal at the Australian Ballet Company, and I can rest my chin on her head. Like that's the height difference with us.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, I just wanted to do ballet, and mum and dad were like, you've got to have some other backup plan because they're very sensible. So I said, oh, well, I want to be a chiropractor then. And then I spoke to my chiropractor and he said, no, you should study osteopathy. What he did was more like osteopathy, and I'd never heard about it before. So that's what I did. I studied osteopathy, but it's a little sad part of the story because mum and dad were like, yes, you can go and do a year of ballet or whatever you want to do, but, you know, university in the background waiting after a year of deferral. And day after my year 12 exams, I went down to Melbourne. I did a classical ballet class in preparation for my audition for the Australian Ballet School the next day. And on the very last exercise of the class, I rolled my ankle and I broke my foot. So I didn't get to the audition. And even if I had auditioned, like the owner of the school had said, or the principal of the school had said, you won't ever get work in Australia because you're too tall. There's like 2 places in the world you'd ever be able to work. So sliding doors moment, but I never would have been successful with ballet. Like I know I just years later, like I never would have been, I'm just way too tall for that. But went to university, studied, still danced as my job. Like that was my job all the way through university in different corporate things and TVs and film clips and movies and all sorts of stuff. And then after I graduated, like just in the end of graduation of osteopathy, I was like, well, I want to, you know, go travel the world as a dancer. And that was right when the movie came out from Moulin Rouge. They came to Australia, auditioned, I got the job and toddled off to Paris. And so I then already had my qualifications as an osteopath. I was able to treat all the other dancers in the shows in Paris, which was great, a little side gig. Nice. And I danced around the world. So I danced in Europe, in Paris and Spain, in America, in Sydney for quite a few years before I retired in my early 30s. And that was when I set up my own clinic, osteopathy multidisciplinary clinic in Adelaide. And I owned that for 15 years. And it's in that time that I did a lot of work with women, especially as an osteopath, with infertility and gut issues and endometriosis. And it's called a visceral manipulation, is the type of hands-on work that I really loved, as well as, you know, the normal kind of back pain and neck pain that people go and see osteopaths for, because we're a structural manual therapist. But it was because of that I thought, you know, I'm treating my patients for things with my hands, but I'm talking about what are you doing on the weekend, like just chit chat. And I thought I could make my conversation so much more important for them if I actually had a bit more background knowledge with nutrition and naturopathy, which is why I went and then studied that on the weekends in between working full time and running a business.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And added that into my repertoire about 6 or 7 years ago, I think. Yeah, that's kind of what started it all. Just, you know, my dance background and mum always being healthy, and I did have a in Sydney a burnout kind of episode of my own, which kind of led. That was, you know, working full time as a dancer, doing shows 6 nights a week, doing osteo work, and I was doing some locum work for this period, and I ended up very unwell after a 12-week block of seeing 80 patients a week, shows every night, and kind of burnt out. So that was when I saw a naturopath myself, and she did change my life. Like, it really was a big change in about 10 days, but the whole change took about 8 years to feel really well again.
Yeah.
And that was what led to then, another reason why I added in naturopathy and nutrition into my qualifications, to be able to help people in that way.
Sitting in front of a naturopath was one of the sliding doors in my life as well. That's really interesting. Yeah. It was a really pivotal moment. When I went through school, I was rubbish at school. I don't know how I got through year 12. I think they just, because I went to an expensive school, I think they just slid me through. That's my gut feeling. I couldn't do maths, I couldn't do sciences, I couldn't do anything. And then I got in my mind that I wanted to study naturopathy, and I whizzed through biology, chemistry, and all these different, because it just made sense in my brain. Suddenly I could apply it to something. It wasn't just abstract. But that's another story. My career path that I was going to, just was so determined to go on, but my parents were like, that is not a job for you. Was actually a very good snow skier. I trained with the Australian ski team, and but they were like, no, you can't do that. And I took their advice. Maybe that was another moment that could have been led to a very different life.
Yeah.
So the difference between, I want to get clear on the two modalities of osteopathy and bar, which is something that I've heard people talk about, but I actually don't know anything about it. But first, I go to a chiropractor. I love my chiropractor. What's the difference between chiropractic and osteopathy?
Such a big question that everyone always asks. What's the difference between physio and chiro and osteo? So we're all manual therapists. Yep. Everyone uses their hands to help. And if I took a photo of a physio and a chiro and an osteo working, we'd all look the same. There's a table, there's a patient, there's a practitioner using their hands. Yep. But our philosophies and principles and the way we look at the body is slightly different. But in saying that, like, if a brand new, straight out of university practitioner are all quite different, but we all learn different things after that, and then it can kind of mesh. So you can have a physio who's similar to an osteo who's similar to a chiro, or a chiro who's similar to an osteo, like the chiropractor I saw. So there's a lot of crossover, because after we graduate we can learn different techniques and go to different seminars. But really simplistically, like, osteopaths work on, like, we have a lot of different techniques that we use, not just manipulation. I know chiropractors have a lot of different techniques as well, but we do probably a little bit more soft tissue than most chiropractors would. And chiropractors tend, I think, to relate everything mostly back to the spine, whereas osteopaths not so much with that. Okay. And physios tend to do perhaps a little bit more rehab, but there's lots of osteopaths that do that as well. And physios tend to perhaps do in musculoskeletal, do different techniques of the hands-on stuff. So it's kind of different techniques and different philosophies and principles, I guess.
Yeah. I've been loving, do I have the book here? Yeah. Have you come across Dr. Gladys McGarry? She's 102.
Oh, wow.
Her parents were osteopaths in India. So it's been around for a long time.
Yeah. The founder of osteopathy, if I remember my first year history of osteopathy subject, 1880 something.
Yeah. She talks about her mum used to have to pretend to be the support because women weren't allowed to work in those days or have a qualification, let alone be anyway. But yeah, so she had to kind of pretend to be the support person for her husband. Amazing, isn't it? Anyway, we've come a long way.
Yeah.
Okay, and so bar, tell me what that is.
This is another one of my passions. So bar is a type of movement and fitness. And so it's a cross between ballet and Pilates, hence why I am very interested in it with my background. And so that's something else that I've been doing and been very involved in. And so I opened a bar studio in conjunction with my allied health clinic. So they were sort of side by side. In Adelaide, like maybe 12 years ago, I started. And so it's a workout. It's a form of workout. It's really fun. It's stand up, hold onto a ballet bar, and there's like weights and burn, like lots of little tiny isometric and eccentric and concentric, which means muscles lengthening and shortening, like little pulses. So really good. There's definitely an element of Pilates with some work on the mat, but it feels like you're kind of dancing. So I love it because it's my background as a dancer, but I still do classes as a client 3 times a week, which I love. And I did have 2 big studios in Adelaide, which I sold about a year ago as well. And I sold my clinic. Yeah.
When do you sleep?
I'm just really organized. Actually, I'm really organized, so I can fit lots in.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so one of the things that I feel, like what I want to be focusing on with this conversation is really this idea of working with the intrinsic intelligence of the human body. I feel like there's so much of healthcare or the medical profession that is very much about kill and conquer and this energy. And I feel like if we can shift the focus to much more of a work with and support the body with what it needs. Our body's greatest desire is for us to flourish and to survive and live. That's what it's hardwired to support us to do. So in supporting that, one of the things that I feel I really love to remind people of, I know understanding bacteria and the gut and the microbiome is something that has become a lot more widespread, but I just feel that it's so easily forgotten because we don't see it. It's not something that we can see with our eyes. And so we forget that we actually have more bacterial cells in our body than we do human DNA. If people can just let that land in your head, we've been raised in this environment where it's kill bacteria, kill, bacteria is bad, kill, conquer. And yet that's talking about killing what runs us. So when we think about supporting the good bacteria in our body, Andrea, let's look at that conversation. Where do we start? How do we think about it?
Amazing. I have a list of actually 15 hot tips that I give all of my clients to do exactly this, because it's not a one thing that fixes this. But can I share a story first? Because I think this is really relevant to what you were just sharing. But I've got a client I'm working with at the moment in my program, and I do a nutrition mindset movement program, and she has just started. And when we did her first initial health history and appointment, she had a lot of gut issues. And she really sounded to me like there was possibly some SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or a parasite. So I like to do a little bit of testing to be really sure about, my diagnosis. And so we ran a stool test on her, and she came back with 2 parasites, 2 really common ones, dientamoeba and blasto. And so I was explaining to her that back in the day, like 10 years ago, if she went to the doctor with that, they would have given her a triple strength antibiotic, killed off those parasites, killed off a lot of the good gut bacteria. And I've seen a lot of clients who did that 10 years ago, and now the amount of foods that they can eat and tolerate without interruption, without symptoms, is getting narrower and narrower and narrower. And I've had some clients that come to me and say, I can only eat 5 foods, 5 things without having digestive upset and feeling terrible. And anyway, so that's the old approach of like, let's kill it, it shouldn't be there. And now there's really new evidence coming out that these common parasites, the blasto and the dientamoeba, perhaps are part of our normal bacteria and are okay to be there. But if there are gut symptoms, like, we need to find out what is going on underneath that might be allowing those bacteria to flourish. So is there a reduction in the good bacteria that we should try and lift up a little bit? Is there a food intolerance, or is there like something like celiac disease laying in the background, or a fructose intolerance, or is it stress? So there's so many things that can kind of lead into that environment inside our gut that allows some bacteria to flourish that we don't want to flourish, and our good bacteria to drop down a bit. So, and even saying bad bacteria and good bacteria in the gut is a really outdated statement as well, because they should all kind of be there, but just shouldn't be out of balance. So they're all good in some way, as long as they're not too much of one. Like, too much of anything good's not a good thing, isn't it? So that story I think is relevant. So she came back with these 2 parasites, I explained to her what I've just said to share with you and our audience now, Edwina, and we're just not doing any of this kind of kill stuff. We're doing straight away a celiac gene test to see if that's part of her picture, and then just starting to get on top of SIBO, because I don't test for everything. Like, I'm so sure she's got SIBO, and especially 80% of SIBO clients with gut symptoms also have 80% of people who have tested positive for blasto and have gut symptoms will have SIBO. So we can kind of extrapolate that out and know that that's possible. So that's just then straight off into a little treatment plan to support her with that. But the 15 things I have that I can share about how to support our gut and nourish them, there's so many things, but the number one is to reduce stress.
No.
Like, when we are stressed, it's one of the main things that disrupts so many different parts of our body, but especially our gut. And that's where you'll see people who have been through chronic stress have really reduced, if we do a stool test, really reduced of those good bacteria, or the good, I'm using that as a loose term, but the forms of bacteria that we want to be flourishing, they're really kind of lowered down. And it's easy to say, like, to stop being stressed, but it's hard to do, and there's so many little elements. But one of my favorite things, I know you're going to love this, one of my favorite things is just doing tiny little positive things over time that are very easy to do, very easy not to do, but over time they take you on a positive trajectory. But if you don't do them, very easy not to do, they take you on a sort of a downhill trajectory. So that might be like 3 big breaths when you first wake up in the morning, or 3 big breaths just before you go to sleep. Pausing before you eat a meal, like just little tiny things like that just add up over time. And there's big things too, like if there's a lot of stress in your life, like for me, when I have my clinic, it was stressful, and I have sold it, and that was a big decision and a huge, big life change. But my health and my tummy is just working so much better since I joined that clinic. I don't have 30 staff to look after.
Yeah, it is. We've been talking a lot over the last couple of days about our values and this drive for more, bigger, bigger. But if there is an element that is actually robbing you of your life, we get to look at that, because there's nothing more valuable than us and our life. So yeah, those decisions can be really challenging.
Yeah, big decisions about, gosh. And when you make a decision like that, so much else opens up in your life as well. Like my life's completely changed since I sold that clinic in a very good way. Yeah. So yeah, the stress is down. Okay, that's number one. Number two is getting on top of sleep. So if you're not sleeping well, that's tied into stress as well. If you're stressed, you're not sleeping well. But if you're not sleeping well, the gut microbiome is going to be not in a healthy way. So again, there's lots of great sleep practices. Have you talked about that in any of the
I think we have touched on sleep. Yeah, we have touched on sleep a bit. Yeah, but it's one of the hot topics, particularly in the perimenopausal, menopausal world, of the 3 o'clock wake up.
Yes. Well, so the 3 o'clock wake up, you would know this too. It's very much a liver sign, and the liver gets out of whack when the hormones are out of whack. And so there's so many things we can do to support the liver, support the body detoxifying hormones, reducing stress is part of it. Like, it's all of this stuff is so intertwined. Like, we focus like that one little thing, like we can try and go to bed 10 minutes earlier at night. Yeah, has a positive effect then on our sleep and other things that we do. And, all of these 15 things I want to share with you, they all have a positive influence on each other.
I talk about them like pieces of a puzzle. I know when I was, like really fixated in the world of nutrition, it was all nutrition, but without the fun and the play and the sleep and the movement, and there's all these pieces that like pieces of a puzzle.
And they all have to be a little bit of, everything has to be a little bit in place. This is a good one: eating slowly and chewing your food. Like, so many of us eat standing up, watching the TV, being distracted, and when our digestive system needs us to be in a state of parasympathetic nervous system dominance. So that's our rest, relax, digest nervous system, versus our sympathetic nervous system, which is like fight, flight, run, rush around, like that kind of nervous system. And so the gut is supplied by the parasympathetic nervous system, hence why we need to be in that lovely relaxed state to eat and actually digest our food well. So if we chew our food, I mean, the favorite thing I say to my clients, sit down to eat. That's number one thing many people don't do. Sit down to eat. 2 big breaths before you start. Turn off the TV, turn off your phone, turn off any distractions. Have a conversation with your loved ones if you're with someone. Put some music on if you want, and just eat slowly and actually chew your food 20 times. It makes a big difference.
I've got a little ritual. I light a candle when I sit down to eat. I love candles. I light a candle, and that's kind of like a little ritual that just reminds me to slow down.
That's so lovely. I love it. I do it. We have a little challenge, I guess, in my nutrition program. 1 week, it only goes for a couple of days because it just gets everyone's awareness in it. And it's those few things like, do you turn everything off? Do you sit down? Do you take a few breaths? Do you chew your food? And we all have to think, like, in the last meal that we had, how many of those did we do? And nearly all of my ladies say 1, 0, maybe 2. Like, yeah, it's just simple stuff that we can really work on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have talked about that quite a lot in this masterclass. Is just these things are so simple. We're not trying to learn how to put a rocket on the moon. It's, like, it really is these simple things, but it's just remembering.
Yeah. Staying hydrated. Drinking enough water is key as well. That's my 4th point.
Yep.
That's simple but important. Yep. Moving your body is important. Like any kind of exercise, it doesn't have to be too much. It's had to be something that you love and that you're going to stick with and enjoy. And then a couple of nutritional kind of things is definitely making sure you check for any food intolerances. That's important if there's any of that floating around, because that can upset your gut lining. And if the gut lining is not happy, then the microbiome inside is not happy as well. That's important. You need to do any kind of dietary modifications if that is a problem, and especially reducing things that are pro-inflammatory, like certain flours can be sugar industrialized, seed oils, all of those kind of things. Too much of any of that is not good. Limiting alcohol consumption is important as well. So, I see it in my women that I work with who are mostly in their 40s and 50s that I personally don't believe that alcohol is good for us in that age group in any way, shape or form. I don't drink, and I know when I do drink, I just feel awful. I don't drink. I drink maybe twice a year, and it's 2 glasses of really expensive French champagne if I don't drink anything. But I just don't feel good afterwards. And so over the years, as I've learned that I don't feel good, then I just want to do it less because I like feeling good. But I see that in my ladies all the time. Like, so many of us are attached to, it's like that coffee to get you going in the morning, sugar to keep you going in the afternoon, a glass of wine to help you wind down at night. And so many of the ladies I work with are so attached to that glass of wine at night. But when we can get them off it, they feel so much better. So much better. And then that's tied into the sleep, because if it's at 3 o'clock waking, that's a liver sign. The liver's having to work to detoxify all of that alcohol. So if we can stop or reduce or eliminate the alcohol out of the system in those perimenopause years, the liver hasn't got such a load and the sleep improves. And then so much is better when you're sleeping better. Yeah.
I want to go back to when you said, your parents or your mum fed you with a bird seed and rabbit food. I grew up the same way. My mum cooked everything from scratch. We had an amazing diet until I went to boarding school and things changed a bit. But and my children have been raised the same way. And what I know is that the vast majority of people live feeling slightly not well all the time. So they actually don't know the difference. You don't feel the difference. And so when you've been really healthy, the tiniest tweaks are really noticeable. So if you don't have any alcohol for months and months, and then you have a glass, you'll feel the difference. But if you have a glass of wine every night or every weekend, your ability to notice the difference that it has on your system is reduced. I've, like my weight's fluctuated, like 20 kilos, 30 kilos at different times since I was 13 or 14. And I know when I'm at the right weight, my vitality, my ability to move, and it's just things feel effortless and easy. Even at 51, I think my body moves more easily now than it did when I was 20. You've got to experience that vitality and that wellness then you know, like when things go a little bit off kilter, it's a much more micro thing. But this is something that I feel a little worried about for this generation that I see growing up now. They have this sort of chronic level of unwellness because of the diets and lifestyles that are happening. So I just feel like it's if you can get yourself to that point where your weight's on point and you really set the intention to do everything beautifully, then once you get in that space of feeling amazing, it's so much easier to make good decisions.
Yeah. My clients love that because they have often never felt how good it feels to feel good. And we have a real philosophy that you never have to miss out on anything. Like if you want to have a glass of wine, have it. If you want to have, this is me, if you want to have a block of chocolate, have it. Like we don't have to miss out on anything. But I know that I'm not going to feel good the next day. Often chocolate will give me a headache too. Like I know that about my body. So I go, chocolate, headache. Today the chocolate's more important than having the headache tomorrow. Or no, I really don't want that headache tomorrow, so I won't have the chocolate. But we learn when you can listen to your body and get those like whispers and messages from your body, you can then make educated decisions. And so my clients all learn that they don't have to miss out on anything, but they know if they go out and they eat whatever or drink whatever, they're going to feel crappy for a day or two, and then they know how to get themselves back on track. Like that's the difference between just going, whatever, I've broken my eating plan and I'm just going to let it all go from here. And then you start feeling terrible all the time again. So you just start to be able to make educated decisions by listening to your body of how you feel.
Yep. It was one of the things I used to say in the brief time that I was a naturopath, is never say never. The minute you say, I'm never going to have that again, it's all you'll think about wanting. Never say never.
No, exactly. No, never have to miss out on anything. Unless you're celiac, then you can't have gluten. There are some nevers.
And there's so many things like chocolate you can have. I mean, I have a small problem with panna chocolate.
Okay, Edwina, I'm just about to change your life then, because panna chocolate has been a favorite of mine for many years, and now I'm really cross with them because they've changed their coconut sugar and putting in cane sugar into the mix.
Oh, are they?
So it's not quite so good as it used to be. But Gevity is a brand, Gevity, that make vegan chocolate made out of bone broth. So bone broth is really healing for our gut, and it is divine, but not the coconut one.
Okay, Gevity.
The salted caramel one,
Salted caramel, I'll make a note of that.
Yeah. It's delicious and it's good. It's nourishing for your gut, and they don't have any of the cane sugar. I'm just disappointed with Panna for selling their soul a little bit.
Why have they done that?
I don't know. I don't know if they've been bought out by someone, or I don't know, but it's just snuck in there on the labels.
Good. Yeah, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Should I tell you a few more things?
Yeah, let's do. And then we'll do this, and then we'll move into ending the diet cycle. So
Oh yes, okay. I've sort of touched a little bit on that, but okay, so eating foods that nourish our gut are important as well. And there's something called resistant starch that is really a great food for the microbiome to keep it healthy. And all of us can do this. Is a simple hot tip. You can easily make resistant starch in your own house, and that is to cook and then cool and then reheat potatoes and rice and pasta. So the cooking and the cooling and then the reheating turns that starch into resistant starch, and then it's really good food. So at the start of the week, I'll make a big container of rice and a big container of roasted potatoes. I love roast potatoes. And then I'll reheat from the containers I've got in the fridge for a couple of days, like about 3 days worth. So that's an easy thing to do. Also increasing our fiber intake. So fiber is super important. Yep. And I have a recipe. It's in my book that I gave you. We're giving that recipe book to, there it is, for seed bread. And the seed bread is amazing. It's so full of fiber. And any of my clients that have a few troubles with going regularly to the toilet, that works beautifully. And even something like steel cut oats versus rolled oats, like having steel cut oats, it's just full of fiber and kind of keep things moving and keep the digestive system really healthy. If you have any imbalances in those bacteria, taking a probiotic or prebiotic kind of supplement can help. And then if there's any underlying anxiety or depression, getting support in any way, shape or form with that is really important, because we need to have those kind of pieces under control to be able to support through your gut as well.
Yep.
And if there's any infections, making sure they're dealt with in the body. It might be a parasite that we need to, like I'm working with my client, just getting that back into balance.
Yeah.
And the number 15 is really important, is just avoiding any unnecessary antibiotics. So antibiotics are there for a reason, but I think, Edwina, when you and I were younger and in our teens and 20s, antibiotics were prescribed way too often. And I know all through my 30s, I used to get tonsillitis like 3 times a year before I started studying naturopathy. And I would take antibiotics 3 times a year. And I'm sure that's where a lot of my gut issues came from. Yeah. And because my microbiome, I have to work really hard to keep that happy and in balance. And I learned something in my naturopathy studies, that 1 dose of antibiotics can kill off some of your good, happy strains of bacteria completely. And other strains can take 16 months to come back again. So I was like, what? That's nuts. So I also learned that zinc is really good for our immune system. And I started taking a zinc tablet regularly every day. And then I've never had antibiotics since. So we just need to support our system and our body to do other things. Like I must have been quite deficient in zinc. Find out there's a zinc deficiency, take the supplement for that. No more antibiotics. Gut starts to work better again.
Yeah, the antibiotics is a hot topic in our house at the moment. I've got 4 children and 2 have really suffered with acne, which is such a debilitating thing for confidence. And the only treatment, I've spent thousands on Chinese, all sorts of different things. The only thing that's made any kind of dent is the antibiotics, and that feels like a really, really something I would love to help them get past that one. But I don't know if you've got any wisdom on that one, because it's been a massive conversation.
Well, I say it importantly, like avoid unnecessary antibiotics. Yeah. Antibiotics are there for a reason, and this, you've tried everything else, and this is perhaps the reason, because the payoff of not taking it versus taking it, for them, it's more important for them to take it and have that confidence and feel better in themselves than it is to not take it. And then doing all of those other things on the list as best as they can get that one that they can't, stay on top of as much because of that choice that they want to make there.
Yeah. Okay, did we get through all 15? Was that 15?
Yeah, I did. I've sort of like combined some.
Fantastic. So with the getting off the diet cycle, I know that, as I've already alluded to, I've been doing this with my weight for majority of my life. And I know that things have changed quite dramatically since perimenopause, and now I think I might technically be not technically in menopause, but I'm getting close. And what I can eat now has shifted again. It keeps changing.
Yeah. So
for those that have had the same frustrations that I have had in trying to work this out, what are your tips and strategies? How do you guide people?
My number one thing is to find foods you love that love you back. That's it. It's quite complex to do that, but that's the main thing, is to find the foods, the ones that you love. Like, there's no point eating foods you don't love, but find the foods you love that love you back. So there might be foods you love, like pizza, for example. I love pizza, but it does not love me back. Like, I don't go well with the gluten or the cheese, and I feel bloated, feel awful the next day and sluggish in my brain. And so that's not a good combination for me. And then we come to, what don't I love? I don't really like pumpkin, but pumpkin's good for me, but I don't really like it. So that's not one in my diet very often. Finding those foods that you love that love you back. And the big focus of that I work with my clients on is looking at inflammation. So you can kind of learn if foods love you back by seeing if they cause inflammation or any system responses, like any symptoms. And so it's like you were saying before, like when you are really healthy and you take alcohol or sugar or whatever out of your system, and you have it occasionally, you really can see that big difference of how you feel with that. And if that's a food that causes you inflammation, you will notice it. But when we're having it all the time, we don't notice it. But the body does give us little whispers of information, and sometimes it starts yelling at you, but you just need to listen to your body in that point where it's whispering, and learn to listen to those whispers to understand what those foods are that love you back. I the easiest way to do this, I mean, it's not easy, but with my clients, it's quite complex, but we go through a process of an elimination where we get rid of any kind of foods that could possibly cause inflammation in the system for 3 weeks. It's not long. We do an elimination for 3 weeks. Then we add those foods back in one at a time. And as we add them back in one at a time, we can see if any of those foods cause an inflammatory reaction or symptoms.
Yeah.
So it's a bit complex, and we work through, you know, I've got an assistant coach that works with me as well, and we guide our clients through that. But the big picture kind of version of that is quite simple, is that you take those foods out, you add them back in one at a time, you see if they cause you symptom response or inflammation, and then you know, and then you can get a long-term plan. Like if gluten, for example, that's my situation, if gluten causes you inflammation or issues,
yeah,
do you have it once a week? Because our body can get rid of inflammation over a 3 to 4 day cycle, but you wouldn't have it twice a week, because then you're living in inflammation the whole time.
Yeah.
But if we can have a little inflammatory response, and the body can cope with it quite well as a one-off on the weekend or something, and then you don't do it again, you're not adding into all this inflammation and staying there. And when I say inflammation, the body will only lose weight when you're not in a state of inflammation.
Yeah.
So if your body is in inflammation, it's going to hold on to weight.
Yep.
So I work with my clients for weight loss, but once they're in my program, we never talk about weight loss. We talk about inflammation and getting healthy, because if you can get healthy and reduce inflammation, weight loss happens beautifully on the side as a side effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That education is invaluable, and that is where I got to as well. I did it with Cindy O'Meara, her who does the HCG.
Amazing. Yeah.
But having that, doing that complete reset, and then educating yourself on what works for your body and what doesn't, and especially with what you offer, if you actually do some hand holding with it, that makes it even better, because trying to guess your way through it is really challenging. It's really challenging.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how we find out what foods love us back, and then you can just make educated decisions about that. And all my girls that I work with, my ladies, they all say they just feel so confident to move forwards after we work together for 12 weeks, because they know how to listen to their body, and then they know how to make choices around that. Yeah. And years later, like they're like, I've still lost my 15 kilos. It hasn't come back on again. You know, it's really nice to hear those stories like that.
And it gives you back that sense of control as well. You know, just feeling like you're in control of what you're doing is so empowering, rather than that feeling of like, it doesn't matter what I try, it's not working. That's
if you diet, like diets do not work. They just don't work. Like if you're cutting out foods, all you're doing is either slowing your metabolism or making yourself hungry, and then you just crave other foods and just want to eat more. Like we've got to focus on putting in, and in my program too, many of my clients eat way more than they've ever eaten before, because I'm like, got to get enough protein in, got to get enough of this in, got to get enough of this in. And they're like, I'm losing weight and I'm eating way more than I've ever eaten before. Like if you're eating the right foods that love you back, you don't have to be on a diet to get those things in place.
And it is a re-education. I know my mum, with the best of intentions, dragged me off to Weight Watchers, I think at probably about 17. So, you know, it starts from there, and there's so much conflicting information and ideas about what's going to work and what doesn't, and calorie counting and all these things. It's just, we need to go back to basics.
I don't do calorie counting or weight food or meal plans. They don't work.
No, calorie counting is one of the most cruel things that somebody came up with. I don't know who came up with that idea, but it was just mean.
No, it's not right, because it's not. You can eat a Mars bar and have less calories than having a beautiful plate of fruit and vegetables full of avocado, and you're not getting any nutrients and nourishing. You're just going to get more hungry from eating the Mars bar, because you're not nourishing your body.
They tell you that like a artificially sweetened lolly snake has got less calories, so it's better for you than a potato. It's like, can we just look at this with some logic, please?
And like anyone who's listening, don't be scared of potatoes. Like we're all like scared of carbohydrates. We shouldn't be. Like if you eat foods that nourish you, eat carbohydrates. Like they're good for us.
I have these fabulous conversations with my husband, Laurie, and I can kind of hear him sort of groan when I get this idea in my head. I'm like, if you were stranded on a desert island, what's the one, and you could take one food or two foods, what would it be? You know, like for me, it's potato.
Potatoes.
Roast potatoes, scallops potatoes, potato chips, you know, anything potatoes, just like,
can I give another hot tip then, talking about potato chips? So we don't have to miss out on anything. You know, I talk about this. Kettle Chips has just released a new chip that's in Woolworths that is made with avocado oil rather than processed seed oils. So most chips, if you read the back of the packet, it's sunflower oil or canola oil. There's nothing wrong with potato chips. What's wrong is those oils. Like, we don't want to have those highly processed inflammatory oils.
Yep.
There's a brand called Boulder.
Boulder. I was going to say Boulder is my go-to. Yeah.
They're really good. But now, and they're hard to get because you just get them at specialty stores. But now Woolies, I've been to some Woolies that doesn't have them, so they mustn't be rolling out in all of them yet. But they've got kettle chips made with avocado oil. Like, how good.
I'm gonna make a note, and
so I've taught everyone how to eat chocolate and chips in this talk.
I invited you for a reason, honey. That's so good. That's so good. I have got a beautiful copy of your book that you very sweetly have shared with me that's gone into the grand prize that's going to be to somebody in the 3Cs community. So I'm very excited to give that away. Thank you. But I know you've also got a gift for everybody that everybody can access. So did you want to take a second to let them know what that is?
Oh my gosh, I've forgotten to set that up.
Do you know you're the second person that's done that? And I also didn't write it down. Gia, can you have a quick look for us, darling? I've got my fabulous.
No, I forgot to set it up because I've got a little gift. It's like a 3-week program, but I actually haven't done it because I forgot.
That's okay. That's okay. We can I'll put it in when it's there, and when it's ready, I will put it in. There's a link with all the gifts. So whenever you decide what it is that feels like the best thing, now that we've had our chat, you're welcome.
You know what's happened since you and I chatted? I don't know if you've seen on my Facebook, but this is why I've forgotten. So as an osteopath, I have to do a certain number of hours to stay clinically registered. And I hadn't been doing those because I've been working mostly online, and I was getting to the pointy end of the time that I needed to up my hours a little bit. And a job opportunity has come up in the Cook Islands for 3 months, working part-time.
Tell me that. I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is so.
It's all happened in a month, and I'm leaving in a week, and that's why I've forgotten to do this.
You're forgiven. We will forgive you. Absolutely, we'll forgive you. So how long are you going for?
3 months.
Oh,
yeah.
So good.
And my beautiful partner's coming over for the middle month, so it's even better.
One of the women in my mastermind flew out to France this morning, and I was like, I'm getting the itchy to travel. My husband's going back to, he's South African, he's going back to Cape Town in November. Yeah, there's people traveling all around me. I'm like, I think it's my turn.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. Totally. I went to Thailand recently and got island fever. So as soon as this ad came up, I was like, oh, that would tick a few boxes. Yeah.
So good. Living. So magical. Thank you so much for being with us, honey. It's been an absolute delight. If there's any questions that come up in the Facebook group, I don't have that open here because I just find it a distraction, but it'll be in the Facebook group. If there's any questions, I know if you've got a minute, if you could go and have a look at that. And otherwise we will catch up soon. I'll look forward to watching your Cook Island adventures on socials.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, that's it for today. Bye for now.